In today's video, I want to talk about 30 or so, 25 or 30 products that we need to make sure we have a good supply of in our stockpile. With the elections coming up and who knows what happens regardless which side wins, it seems like now is a good time to get all of this stuff just taken care of and make sure we have what we think we have and enough of some of these essentials. My wife and I were talking the other day about this, saying, hey, maybe we should go to the grocery store and just get a little bit extra of a few things just in case. And the cool thing about this is, although it does cost a little bit of extra money, it's not wasted money, and it's not something that if nothing happens, you're going to have all this food. You just have a little bit extra down the line, which is going to make it a little bit cheaper for you if everything does go smoothly. Like I said, though, this is one of those times it just got me a little bit on edge, wondering, maybe I should go out and get a little bit more. So with that today, I want to talk about what some of these foods that we're thinking about, just making sure that we have enough. And if we don't, putting those on a shopping list and going out and getting some. And we'll start off with canned foods here because this is the prepper staple, right? The shelf stable foods and the canned foods. You've got your fruits, so your peaches, your pears, your pineapples. All of these are a great source of vitamin C. They're a nice little side dish to any meal. The kids love them. So making sure we have these, whether it's the mixed fruits or whatever you decide, whatever your family eats, making sure we have these is important. You've also got the vegetables, the green beans, the corn, the carrots, the peas, all these, again, that make a really good side dish and can even just be eaten by themselves in an emergency or a situation where you don't want to cook anything. You just pop open a can of these and eat these, and these will be fine. You've also got the beans, the black beans, the kidney beans, the chickpeas, a lot of different types of beans. And these are good ingredients. While you can eat these by themselves, they are good ingredients for different types of meals, whether you're talking about ranch beans, you're talking about chili, anything like that. Beans are just good to have on the shelf. You've also got the meats. You've got the tuna, the chicken, the Spam. These days, you even have ground beef in a can, and even the little packages rather than the cans, you've got those as well. So make sure you have a good stockpile of all of these as well. And also with the canned foods, you've got soups, and these are basically, to me, a meal in a can. You've got a wide variety of different soups, some thicker, some thinner, but making sure you have a lot of soups available to you is a good idea as well, because this is that quick and easy. You can take an alcohol stove, put a can of soup in a pan and heat that up in 5-10 minutes and you're good to go. So soups and meats and beans and vegetables and fruits are all good canned foods to have. Keep in mind, make sure you rotate these regularly and make sure you're buying foods that your family is going to eat. Otherwise, they're going to sit on the shelf. And if nothing happens, it's going to sit there forever until you throw it away. And I mentioned the canned meats, but also in a situation like we're talking about here, I don't expect the grid to be down. So refrigeration and freezers and things like that are going to work. Now, you never can tell. I think the more you put in freezers, the bigger risk you're running. But if you have the ability to run a freezer in a grid down event, and even if you don't, I think it's important to stock up on extra meat. That's one of our main goals, is stocking up on extra meat and freezer foods, the frozen vegetables and things like that, filling up all our freezer space. And then you've got what I call bread making essentials. And this is the sugar. Sugar goes in a lot of different things, but sugar has an indefinite shelf life as long as it's stored properly. Even in the bag, it's going to last a few years. Then you've got flour, and this same type of situation. Flour straight from the store, probably going to last you a couple years. If you put that in a 5-gallon bucket with an oxygen absorber or two in there, it's going to last much, much longer than that. I did a video on that as well if you're curious how to store flour in a 5-gallon bucket. And then you've got the yeast, which is an important part of bread, and yeast packets that you get from the store are going to last a year, year and a half without refrigeration. So you're going to be good to go on something like that. And yeast packets are something that I make sure and rotate through and use consistently. That way I always have some fresh yeast packets in my pantry. And salt, just like sugar, salt basically lasts forever, and you're going to need salt, or you're going to want salt for a number of different reasons, not just making bread. I just call these bread making essentials because these essentials right here that you can make bread with go into a number of different recipes. You've also got the oils, whether you're talking about olive oil or vegetable oil. These are good for a number of different recipes as well. And these olive oil and vegetable oil will last a year or two in your pantry. So for a situation like this, it doesn't hurt to have maybe a gallon, maybe even 2 gallons of vegetable oil or olive oil ready in your pantry. Bread is super simple and something that we should all be able to do because it makes a great filler for any type of meal. So if you're cooking beans, or even if you've just got that can of soup that you're heating up, having a little bit of bread makes it more of a meal than just that can of soup. And then you've got the instant foods, or the just add water meals, right? You've got instant potatoes, which are a great addition, much like the bread, a great addition to any meal. You've got the powder eggs, which are a great source of protein, which may be hard to come by in certain situations. So having a good stockpile of powdered eggs is definitely something good to do. We've got a Harvest Right freeze dryer and some chickens, and I do 2 batches of eggs a month. So I've got eggs on top of eggs on top of eggs. But if you don't have the chickens, going to the store and getting some of these powdered eggs, or shopping on Amazon, getting these now, put them on your shelf, and they're going to last you a super long time. You've also got powdered milk, and I've even heard some people use evaporated milk. You just add a little bit of water to that, and it tastes much better than the powdered milk. But these 2 options are going to be important to have, especially if you have children or if you're baking different types of recipes. Children are going to want, milk with their cereal and things like that. And while the powdered milk isn't all that, super fantastic, it is good enough if it's mixed in with cereal and different recipes and stuff. And same with the evaporated milk. So make sure you have that as well. And one thing personally I like to have is powdered cheese, because if it is a situation where the grid is down, I love cheese with just about everything that I eat. Cheese just makes everything a little bit better. So having some powdered cheese, whether, you've got macaronis and you're just making macaroni and cheese, a number of different things that you can do with cheese. And again, the grid may not be down in a situation like this, and blocks of cheese last quite a while. So maybe get some extra of that while you're there as well. Again, all these different foods that are just add water foods, some of these ones that'll be really easy in some sort of emergency situation to just put together. Like I said, you take one of the alcohol stoves, or maybe you've got a hot plate you need to use for 10 minutes, boil some water, and then you just mix those things together, or you just add that water and you're good to go. And then, since you've gotten those supplies to make that bread, you understand how to make that bread, make sure you have some peanut butter and even some jelly as well. Jelly lasts a super long time. It doesn't need to be refrigerated until it's opened. Peanut butter, the same thing. Peanut butter will last years past its expiration date, and it's super high in protein. It's super high in the healthy fats. Peanut butter is one of those. You could just eat spoonfuls of peanut butter and get, that protein and those fats that you need. So peanut butter is definitely one of those things. Make sure you have a few jars of, whether you are spreading it on a sandwich or you're just dipping your spoon into the jar of peanut butter. Honey is another one that it would be sort of the same thing as jelly. Honey's got a bunch of different uses. It's got an indefinite shelf life. It does start to get crystallized as it gets older. It's got medical properties. Honey is just real honey, not the artificial honey that they sell at the store. But if you can get your hands on some real honey, you can't go wrong with that. And you can get as many jars as you can fit in your pantry or afford. And also, I think hard candy is not one of the essentials that you would need, and chocolate's kind of an essential to me, but hard candy is a good idea as well, because it's just that morale booster, maybe a quick sugar fix. The kids, if you've got children, it's something that you can give them, kind of like a dessert, I suppose, but it's just one of those things that it stores for, hard candy especially, stores for a very long time, almost forever. I'm sure grandma's got some hard candy that she bought 30 years ago, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. So, getting some hard candies is just a good idea. And then if you're like me and you're that chocolate lover, that stuff lasts for about a year or so. It doesn't have a really long shelf life. And, there's not a whole lot you can do to extend that shelf life with chocolate because of the fats in there. But for a year or so, you're probably not going to have a hard time eating the chocolate before that expires. And remember, keep all of these in a cool, dry place, as dark as possible. This goes for all your food storage. The enemies of food storage are light, moisture, and pests. The more you can protect against those three things, the longer your food's going to last. And then you've got grains and legumes, beans and things like that. I talked about the canned beans earlier, but you've also got the dried beans, which take a little bit more preparation and a little bit more water, but they store a really, really long time, and you can store quite a bit of them in a small space. So if you have the ability, look into what it takes to prepare those beans, soaking them and everything, and see if that's for you. Otherwise, go with the cans, but dried beans are good to put in your food storage. You've got the rice, which again has an indefinite shelf life, super long shelf life. We've got rice that has been on it just sitting in a 5-gallon bucket for 5 years. No oxygen absorber, nothing like that. As long as you keep it away from those pests, it's going to be fine. And you've also got pastas, different types of pastas, whether you're talking about the pasta noodles, spaghetti, things like that. Pasta, yes, it does take a little bit of water to cook, but if you're in a situation where the water's still running, that's not a huge deal. Pasta is one of those things that you can make over and over again, and the family's probably not going to mind it too much. Everybody loves spaghetti. And then you've got the oats. You've got the rolled oats, which are a little bit less processed than your normal oats, your steel cut oats and things like that. But oats are another thing you can put in certain recipes, and they are also really filling. So whether you're talking about a breakfast, you can make muffins with them, just a number of different uses for oats. And again, you can store a whole lot of them if you use the 5-gallon bucket method. You can store a whole lot of these and build up your food storage pretty good. And next, I've got some flavor enhancers and meal bases. And I was talking about spaghetti. Why not get a few jars of spaghetti sauce? We've got a number of different types of spaghetti sauce. Some have meat, some don't. These last for a year, year and a half. So in a situation like we're talking about today, spaghetti sauce, you can put it on a shelf. It doesn't need refrigeration. Spaghetti sauce is great to have because with those meals, plain old spaghetti, you got to figure out different ideas to put things on them. But if you have some spaghetti sauce, really it just makes it an all-around good meal. And if you've got the ability to make that bread, then you're good to go with a meal right there, and maybe some canned fruit for dessert or on the side. You've got a pretty good meal right there. Just because it's a disaster doesn't mean you have to eat like it's a disaster. And then you've got coffee. If you're like me, coffee is one of those super important things you've got to have. We've got a few extra cans of coffee at all times, regardless whether things are about to get bad or not. We always have coffee. We do have a little bit of instant coffee, which may be a good idea for you if you're not a big coffee drinker. Maybe getting some of that instant coffee. It'll last a couple years. And even if you don't use it, it's not a huge deal. For us, we never use it, so I don't store a whole lot of instant coffee. I've got a percolator, I've got a French press, I've got ways to make coffee, and I've got plenty of coffee if I need to. So think about those as well. But coffee is going to be one of those things that, especially if you're doing work around the house, doing a lot of things, you're going to want some coffee. And you've also got vinegar, which is got a number of different uses. It can go in recipes. It can be a cleaner, a sanitizer. So, you don't need 14 gallons of vinegar or anything, but make sure and get some of that just in case, because you never know what you might need it for. And it's one of those things you set it in the cabinet and you don't have to worry about it. Also, with the flavor enhancers, you've got the bouillon cubes, whether you're talking about chicken bouillon or beef bouillon. These in themselves wouldn't seem like, the essential prepping item that you need. But if you are trying to make different soups or something from scratch, having a little base like that, a little bit of chicken flavor rather than just straight water or beef flavor, will help you create a good soup. Again, this is one of those things just like the bread. Make sure you learn some recipes where these would be useful. But bouillon cubes can sit in your cabinet for years and they'll still be fine. They may get a little bit hard and crunchy, but you can solve that problem. Just let them soak for a little bit. And then you've also got things like ramen noodles. These are quick. They don't take up a whole lot of water. I suppose I could have put these in the just add water meals, but this could be a base for different types of soups as well. So ramen noodles, I think, are something that, you get the pack and it sits nice and neatly on your shelf. You can get however many of these you want, and they are quick, easy meals. It's a good lunch. It's a good filler. It's good for, children and and it's got the little spice packs in them. So ramen noodles, I think, are really good to have in your prepper pantry. And some people have quite a bit of these. And while we're on this, make sure with me, I have to have pepper. I love pepper on just about everything other than maybe ice cream. But pepper, other important spices as well, whether you're talking about garlic salt, onion salt, basil, oregano, Italian seasonings, all of these different spices that you use quite a bit, make sure you have those in your pantry. And they last for quite a while. Yes, they lose their flavor over time, but they don't necessarily go bad. So making sure you have those ingredients in your pantry that's going to take something that's bland, boring, and mundane and turn it into something that's a little bit more palatable and a little bit better than, what we had yesterday. So all the different types of spices are really important. So like I said in the beginning, this is not an end of the world shopping list, right? This is, like Lisa and I were talking about, just going out and making sure, going around the house, making a list and making sure we have all the things we need just in case things start to go off the rails a little bit here in the next month or so and possibly beyond that. I think it's important to have all of these basics taken care of, do stock, do inventory, and make sure you have all that your bases covered before we get into that situation. If nothing happens, good for us. Fantastic. We've got a little bit extra and maybe we can save a few bucks next month or the month after that. But it's important that we get all of these taken care of. I have done some videos about canned foods that you should stockpile and foods that will last indefinitely for that long-term food storage. If you're interested in that, make sure and watch that video here. But with that, I am done today. If you have any thoughts, make sure and leave them in the comment section below. Take care and prepare. We will talk to you all later.